Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Aaron Rawlings, and 3 years back my ex-wife Lauren stripped me of everything I'd built. The $22 million Texas ranch, my trucking company, even my German shepherd, Max, gone. The ink on the divorce papers hadn't even dried when she sent me that final text. You'll never recover from this, Mitch. You were always too soft for the real world. At 33, I went from owning 42 semis to driving strangers around Dallas in a beat-up 10-year-old Honda Accord. I went from sleeping in a master bedroom with a view of 500 acres of hill country to crashing in a one-bedroom apartment where the air conditioner made noises like it was dying. From being daddy every morning at breakfast to being every other weekend on a custody schedule. But that's the thing about hitting rock bottom. It has a funny way of putting you right where fate needs you. One Thursday night, I picked up a passenger who left her purse in my back seat. I didn't think much of it until I noticed it hours later and decided to drop it off at the return address on her driver's license. When I walked into the building, a downtown glass tower with a marble lobby, her assistant looked up from behind the desk, took one glance at my face, and froze. Her coffee nearly slipped from her hand. "Oh my God," she said, her voice trembling. "You're Richard Holloway's son, aren't you?" I blinked. "I'm sorry." "Who?" The name meant nothing to me. My father had supposedly died before I was even born. That's what my mother, Caroline Sierra, had told me my entire life, that he'd been killed in a refinery explosion in '87. "That was your father?" the assistant pressed, her voice unsteady. She reached for her phone, hands shaking. "He worked here in 1987. He died 3 months ago." She hesitated, studying my face like she was confirming something impossible. "He owned 75% of this company." The air left my lungs. 75%. Of this company? The words barely made sense, but what she said next would shatter everything I thought I knew about who I was. Because it turned out the man I'd believed was gone all my life had been alive, watching from a distance as I built and lost everything, waiting for the moment when he could finally step out of the shadows. My ex-wife had been right about one thing. I never did recover from losing it all. I just didn't realize it was because I was meant to inherit something far greater than a trucking company. The price my father paid to give it to me wasn't measured in money. It was 33 years of silence. This is the story of how returning a stranger's forgotten purse led me to discover an $847 million inheritance, and why, even now, I still drive Uber once a month, searching for people who've forgotten who they are, hoping I can hand them back their own story like I once got mine. I'd built Rawlings Transport from nothing but grit. At 22, I bought a beat-up 98 Peterbilt with the 60 grand I'd saved after 4 brutal years working on oil rigs. The truck had nearly 400,000 miles on it, but that engine purred like a loyal dog, and I knew it still had life in it. My mom, Caroline, came with me the day I signed the papers at a dusty used truck lot in Fort Worth. I can still see her standing there in her denim jacket, worry etched all over her face. "Aaron, your father would be proud," she said quietly, resting her hand on my shoulder. It was one of the few times she'd ever mentioned him. She never talked much about the man who'd left her 7 months pregnant, supposedly taken by that explosion that no one ever investigated too closely. No body was found, no insurance payout. Just a hole in both our lives that time never filled. I named the company after myself because there was no one else to name it for. Rawlings Transport was just me, a sleeping bag in that truck cab, and a willingness to drive anywhere that paid. I took every job that came my way. Hazardous loads, overnight hauls, long runs from Texas to California. Sometimes I'd drive 20 hours straight, living on gas station coffee and beef jerky, pulling into rest stops so tired I could barely see straight, but I didn't complain. That truck was freedom. It was mine. By the 3rd year, I'd hired 2 drivers, then 5, then 15. The fleet grew faster than I could have imagined, and before long I had 42 rigs hauling freight across the country. I thought I was living the dream. Turns out, I was just living in the shadow of one I didn't know existed. My father's silence wasn't an absence. It was a plan. And everything I thought I'd built on my own had been carefully, quietly, guided by the man I'd been told was gone. Coffee and determination were my only partners in those early years. I lived on caffeine, long hours, and the stubborn belief that hard work would eventually pay off. By the time I turned 25, I'd managed to scrape together enough to buy a second truck and hire my first driver, an old-timer named Cecil, who'd been hauling freight longer than I'd been alive. Cecil taught me more about business and survival than any MBA ever could. He showed me how to negotiate with shippers who thought a young guy like me didn't know his worth, how to keep trucks running on a tight budget, and how to treat drivers like family if you wanted them to stick around. Growth came faster than I expected. By my 30th birthday, Rawlings Transport had 42 rigs on the road and 60 drivers on payroll. We'd carved out a niche hauling refrigerated goods for organic food distributors. Fast, clean, high-paying work. The numbers were staggering for a company that started with one old Peterbilt and a dream. Our best year pulled in $12 million in revenue. The money poured in faster than I could spend it, and for a while, it felt like the universe had finally stopped testing me. I married Lauren when I was 27, back when the company had 15 trucks and the future looked limitless. She was a paralegal at the firm that handled my contracts. Beautiful, sharp, confident, with auburn hair that caught the light and green eyes that could see through anyone's excuses. On our first date, she told me, "You're going places, Aaron Rawlings. I can always tell which clients are going to make it big." At the time, I thought she meant us. We bought the ranch the following year, right after she found out she was pregnant with our first child, Mason. $22 million for 500 acres of Texas Hill country, rolling pastures, oak trees, a spring-fed lake, horse stables, and a 7-bedroom house that looked like something out of a magazine. It was excessive, sure, but Lauren said image mattered. "People invest in success," she used to say. "You need to look like the kind of man who wins." I signed the mortgage papers because back then I believed her. The company was booming. We could afford anything, or so I thought. Mason was born first, and 2 years later came Chloe, our little firecracker. Those early mornings on the ranch were golden. I'd wake up before dawn, make coffee, and step out onto the porch as the sky turned orange over the fields. Max, our German Shepherd puppy, would chase the sunrise while Lauren got the kids ready. Mason would come running into the kitchen in his pajamas, carrying a toy semi-truck, and Chloe would toddle behind him, rubbing sleep from her eyes. We'd eat breakfast together, all of us, before I headed to the small office I'd built at the edge of the property. "Daddy's going to work," Mason would announce proudly, like it was the most important sentence in the world. I thought that kind of peace would last forever. Everything started to change when Lauren's cousin Ryan moved to Texas. He was a financial advisor from Chicago, all smooth charm and expensive suits. He talked like a man who'd never sweated a day in his life, and Lauren ate up every word. They started having lunch together, talking about investments and diversification. She began coming home late, buzzing with new ideas about wealth optimization and how I was too focused on the trucking side of things. "You're sitting on millions in equity, Mitch," she told me one night over dinner. "Ryan says we could leverage the company assets better." I should have known where it was heading when she turned the guest house into her office so she and Ryan could work on our finances together. Late-night strategy sessions became the norm. She'd come to bed hours after me, talking about private equity buyouts and trucking owners who were cashing out for millions overnight. Then came the Tuesday I'll never forget. I came home from a 3-day route inspection to find divorce papers on the kitchen counter, right where our family used to eat breakfast. The kids were gone, taken to her mother's in Houston. Max was locked in his kennel, whimpering, surrounded by silence that felt like a graveyard. The accusations in the filing hit me like a freight train. Financial mismanagement, emotional neglect, creating an unstable home environment. Every word was a lie. But Ryan had connections, and those connections had power. His fraternity brother from SMU, Judge Mason Pike, just happened to be assigned to our case. My lawyer Robertson, a decent man who'd helped me with contracts for years, looked defeated before we even started. "Pike and your wife's advisor golf together every Sunday," he said quietly. "I'll fight for you, Mitch, but you need to prepare yourself." The trial was a slow-motion massacre. It didn't matter that I had a spotless record, that I'd never missed a school play, never laid a hand on anyone, never failed to provide. They painted me as a reckless dreamer who valued his business more than his family. The court gave Lauren everything: the ranch, controlling interest in Rawlings Transport, and $15,000 a month in support. I got every other weekend with my kids and a mountain of debt that would take a lifetime to dig out from under. Outside the courthouse, Lauren walked up to me one last time, Ryan right behind her with his arm around her waist. "You were always too trusting, Mitch," she said with that same calm, polished tone she used in court. "Business requires sharks, not goldfish. Ryan's going to help me turn Rawlings Transport into something special." I didn't say a word. I just stood there, letting the final pieces of my old life fall away. Within 6 months, they'd gutted my company, sold off the trucks for fast cash, and fired every driver who'd helped me build it. Cecil called me the day he was let go, crying so hard I could barely understand him. By then, I was already driving Uber. living in a one-bedroom apartment in Arlington with walls thin enough to hear my neighbor's TV through the night. My credit was ruined. My savings were gone. And at 33, I found myself starting from zero, with nothing but an aging car, a dog-eared copy of my old company logo, and the bitter knowledge that sometimes the people who promise to build with you are only waiting to tear it all down. 3 months into driving Uber, I built a routine that was the only thing keeping me from losing my mind. I'd get up at 5 in the morning, splash cold water on my face, and start the airport runs before sunrise. Dallas Love Field, DFW. Didn't matter. I knew every terminal like the back of my hand. By noon, I'd grab a gas station sandwich and a lukewarm coffee, then head downtown to work the dinner and bar crowd until midnight. 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Sunday was supposed to be for my kids, but lately Lauren always had an excuse. Chloe's got a birthday party, or Mason's not feeling well. I knew she was lying. I could hear it in her tone, but calling her out meant more lawyers, more bills, and another trip to the courthouse I couldn't afford. So I'd stay quiet, stare at the hanking in my apartment, and tell myself it wouldn't always be this way. That Thursday evening in August, the temperature hit 103 degrees, and my Honda's air conditioner was fighting for its life. I'd already apologized to 3 passengers for the heat, trying to laugh it off, but the sweat on my back made it hard to find anything funny. When I pulled into the pickup zone at Dallas Love Field, I spotted her right away. Pickup point 7. Cream-colored suit, silver hair twisted perfectly in the back, a leather briefcase in one hand and designer luggage in the other. She was barking into her phone, her tone sharp and commanding. "The board needs those projections by morning," she snapped. "Tell Harrison if he can't deliver, I'll find someone who can." She ended the call, slid into the back seat without even looking up, and said, "Ridgemont Industries downtown. Take Mockingbird to Central, not the tollway." Her voice left no room for questions. I knew Ridgemont Industries. Everyone in Dallas did. They owned half the city's skyline, plus a few manufacturing plants scattered across the state. Their 50-story glass tower glowed like fire in the setting sun, a monument to money and power. During the 35-minute drive, she didn't stop talking, firing off orders and numbers that made my old trucking spreadsheets sound like a child's homework. I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to live in that kind of world again, one where the next day wasn't a question of survival. "Driver," she said as we pulled up to the building's entrance, "I need to stop at my office for a moment. Keep the meter running. I'll be right back." She stepped out, leaving behind a faint trace of expensive perfume that lingered in the air. I watched her stride across the marble lobby, her heels clicking like clockwork. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Any other driver would have canceled the ride and moved on, but I just sat there, staring at the doors. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I just didn't want to fight rush hour traffic again. Around the 30-minute mark, I turned to check the back seat, and that's when I saw it. Her purse. Black leather with gold clasps lying on the floor behind the passenger seat. She must have set it down while juggling her phone and briefcase. I reached back and picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Through the slightly open top, I could see a wallet, car keys, and a few folders marked Confidential Board Review. I sat there holding it, caught in one of those moments where your next choice might actually matter. I could have driven off and turned it into Uber's Lost and Found. Let the system handle it. That was the smart move. No interaction, no risk. Wealthy people could turn on you fast if they thought you'd stepped out of line. But then I heard my mother's voice, clear as day, from years ago. "Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching, Aaron." She'd said that when I was 8 and found $20 on the playground. I sighed, started the engine, and pulled into Ridgemont's garage. The security guard at the front desk looked at me like I was lost. My faded jeans and Uber shirt didn't exactly blend in among the marble floors and chrome accents. "I'm returning a purse," I explained, holding it up. "My passenger went upstairs about half an hour ago. Veronica Oakley." His eyes widened slightly. "Miss Oakley? The CEO?" "Yeah," I said awkwardly. "She left this in my car." He made a quick phone call, murmured something into the receiver, and after a few moments, another call followed. 2 minutes later, the express elevator pinged open. A woman in her 40s stepped out, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Her name tag read Linda Vance, executive assistant. "You have Miss Oakley's purse?" she asked, her tone polite but assessing. "Yeah, she left it in my Uber," I said, handing it over. I figured that was the end of it, but Linda didn't move. She just stood there, staring at me. Her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. The color drained from her face, and for a second she looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. "Aaron," I said. "Aaron Rawlings." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Rawlings?" She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails biting into my skin. Your mother's name. What is it? It's Caroline, isn't it? My heart skipped. How do you know that? She let out a shaky breath, her eyes wide. Oh my God, she whispered. You're Richard Holloway's son. You have to be. You look exactly like him. I blinked, trying to process the name. I don't know any Richard Holloway, I said slowly. My father died before I was born. But from the way she was staring at me, I could tell that whatever I'd believed my whole life was about to come apart piece by piece, and nothing I'd been told about my father was true. Linda glanced around the lobby like someone afraid of being overheard, then tugged at my sleeve. Please, come with me, she said quietly, urgency in her voice. There's something you need to hear. I've been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since Mr. Holloway started calling the office asking about Caroline Rawlings and her son. Her words hit me like a thunderclap. That's impossible, I said automatically. My father's dead. Linda didn't flinch. Your father died 3 months ago, she said firmly, but not 33 years ago. My pulse thudded in my ears. Richard Holloway worked here in 1987, she continued. He wasn't just an employee. He owned 75% of this company through silent holdings. The last 3 years of his life were spent trying to find a way to reach you without violating a court order that prevented any contact. My legs felt like they'd forgotten how to hold me up. The hallway swayed slightly, as if the ground itself was rethinking what was real. Everything I'd believed about my life was unraveling right there, between polished walls and the low hum of air conditioning. Linda led me to a quiet conference room on the 3rd floor, far from the executive suites. The space was lined with framed photographs, decades of Ridgemont Industries history frozen in glossy smiles and handshakes, ribbon cuttings, groundbreaking ceremonies, men in hard hats standing beside CEOs who'd long since passed. She locked the door, drew the blinds, and sat across from me. Before I say anything else, she said softly, pulling out her phone, I need you to see this. Her thumb swiped across the screen until she stopped on a photo, an old company newsletter dated March 1987. This came from our archives. Look at the 2nd row, 3rd from the left. I took the phone from her hand and felt my stomach drop. The man in the picture could have been me, only frozen in another lifetime. Same jawline, same eyes, same stance with his weight shifted slightly to one side like he was caught mid-thought. The caption read, Richard Holloway, Junior Executive, Finance Division. My mouth went dry. That's not possible, I whispered. My mom told me my father died in a refinery explosion. She even had the newspaper articles. She was protecting you, Linda said, her tone gentle but steady. Richard Holloway was alive until 3 months ago. Liver cancer took him at Presbyterian Hospital. I was one of the few people at his funeral. She showed me another photo, this one recent. An older man, thin and pale, lying in a hospital bed. But the eyes, those eyes were mine. And Mason's. I stared until the world blurred. Tell me everything, I said, my voice breaking. Linda took a breath, checked the door again, and leaned closer. Richard started here in 1985, straight out of UT Austin. Everyone said he was a prodigy, brilliant with numbers, ambitious, the kind of guy who'd be running the place someday. But in 1987, he made one mistake that cost him everything. He fell in love with the wrong woman. She paused. Catherine Ridgemont, the founder's daughter. The name hit like a puzzle piece snapping into place. Benjamin Ridgemont's daughter, she confirmed. Benjamin was ruthless. When Catherine got pregnant, he lost it. He gave Richard 2 choices, disappear forever or face charges he'd fabricate. Embezzlement, corporate espionage, he had the power to make anything stick. Benjamin controlled judges, politicians, and half the city's press. Richard took the deal to protect Catherine and you. I blinked hard. So, the refinery explosion? A cover story, Linda said. Benjamin orchestrated it all. He had fake articles printed. Just a few copies, enough for Caroline to have proof if anyone ever asked. But Richard never died. He signed legal documents agreeing never to contact you or your mother, never to come within 1,000 feet of either of you. Benjamin made sure of it. My hands trembled so badly I had to grip the edge of the table to keep them steady. So he just walked away? He didn't walk away, Linda said firmly. He was forced out. He changed his last name to Holloway, his mother's maiden name, and vanished. Started small, doing consulting work, investing every penny he could scrape together. He used shell corporations, offshore trusts, anything to stay invisible. But he never stopped working toward one thing, taking back what Ridgemont stole from him. She showed me another document, an internal ledger dated years apart, full of stock transactions and trust fund entries. Over 3 decades, he bought out disillusioned board members, minor shareholders, even Catherine herself when she needed cash after her divorce. Piece by piece, he rebuilt his empire under their noses. By the time Benjamin died in 2015, Richard owned 75.3% of Ridgemont Industries, worth roughly $847 million. I could barely breathe. He could have come forward then. He almost did, she said. But your life was stable. You had your company, your family. He didn't want to blow it all apart. He kept tabs on you quietly. When your divorce happened, he knew. He had investigators watching. He saw Lauren's betrayal. He wanted to reach out, but his lawyers warned him against it. Under Texas law, if he contacted you, your ex-wife could claim a share of your inheritance through spousal rights. The timing had to be exact. Linda hesitated, her expression softening. He'd planned to meet you this year. His doctors told him the cancer was terminal. He thought he had 6 months, but it spread faster than anyone expected. I leaned back, staring at the hanking, my heart pounding. So all this time, my father wasn't gone. He was right here, watching me fail. No, Linda said gently. He was watching you survive. He couldn't reach out, but he never stopped believing you'd find your way back. I pushed back from the table and began pacing toward the window, trying to ground myself in something solid. Below, the Dallas traffic crawled through the heat like a slow, endless river of steel and exhaustion. Horns blared, the sound echoing faintly even from 30 stories up. I pressed my hand against the glass. 3 months ago, while I was driving strangers to the airport for tips, my father, my real father, was dying just 15 miles away, sitting on nearly $1 billion in assets he couldn't legally give me. The weight of that reality pressed on my chest. There's more, Linda said quietly. I turned, and the look on her face told me she wasn't exaggerating. Your father left very specific instructions with Northbridge Legal. They handle the estates of Texas's elite. Gregory Northbridge himself has been waiting for you to show up. Richard believed fate would eventually lead you here. He planned for it. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You're saying he planned for me to find out by picking up one of his executives in an Uber. That's not a plan. That's insanity. Linda shook her head. No, Aaron. That's love. A father's love that had to find another way around an impossible wall. He couldn't reach you directly, but he could make sure that when the moment came, when the world finally put you in the right place, the doors would open. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek business card, sliding it across the table to me. The name was embossed in gold. Gregory Northbridge, Managing Partner, Northbridge Legal Group. Call him tonight or tomorrow morning at the latest, she said. There's a board meeting in 3 weeks, and as the majority shareholder, you need to be there. I stared at the card, the letters shimmering in the light. I don't know anything about running a corporation, I said. I was a trucker who lost everything. You built a company from 1 truck to 42, she said simply. You understand business better than most people in this building, and you won't be alone. Your father trusted Veronica Oakley to keep Ridgemont running. She's sharp, loyal, and she respected him. You don't have to change anything, just claim what's yours. I turned the card over in my hand, the weight of it somehow heavier than it should have been. What about my mother? I asked finally. Did she know he was alive? Linda hesitated. That's a conversation only she can have with you, she said carefully. But I can tell you this. Richard made sure she was taken care of. He sent money every month through an anonymous trust. How do you think she afforded your college tuition working as a grocery clerk? My mouth went dry. Suddenly, all the small mysteries of my past lined up like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. The anonymous scholarship that covered my tuition at Texas A&M. The way Mom would tear up whenever I asked about Dad. Her constant insistence that I never look too deeply into it. She hadn't been lying. She'd been protecting me. Linda, I said, why are you telling me all this? She gave a tired, almost nostalgic smile. Because Richard Holloway was the kind of man who deserved for his son to know the truth. Because I watched him spend 30 years building this company back piece by piece, fighting in silence for something he could never publicly claim. And because Ridgemont's CEO, Veronica, needs to know that the person behind the controlling shares isn't a faceless investment firm. It's you. Richard Holloway's son has come home. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Northbridge Legal, my stomach in knots. The entire 40th floor of Republic Tower belonged to them, and it looked exactly like the kind of place where fortunes were built and secrets buried. Everything gleamed, dark oak, soft leather, gold fixtures, and quiet that seemed almost sacred. I'd barely slept after calling the number on Linda's card the night before. Gregory Northbridge's assistant had answered, and within 10 minutes she'd scheduled me for an 8 a.m. meeting. When the elevator doors opened, the man himself was waiting in the lobby. "Aaron Rawlings," he said with a warm smile, extending his hand. He had silver hair, a perfectly tailored suit, and the calm authority of someone who'd seen the best and worst of humanity from behind polished conference tables. "I've been expecting you for 3 years. Your father said you'd find your way here eventually. He had more faith in fate than any man I've ever met." I followed him into a conference room lined with bookshelves and floor-to-hanging windows overlooking downtown Dallas. On the polished mahogany table sat 5 large banker's boxes and a single white envelope with my name written across it in shaky handwriting. Gregory gestured toward it. "Read the letter first," he said softly. He insisted. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope and carefully tore it open. The paper smelled faintly of hospital disinfectant and ink. "Aaron, my son," it began. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and you'll finally know the truth. I've watched your life from a distance, every year, every milestone. I was there in the back row when you graduated high school. I was across the street when you married Lauren, wishing I could warn you, but knowing some lessons must be lived, not taught. I watched you build Rawlings Transport with the same grit and determination I once used to build my stake in Ridgemont. I saw myself in you. The way you fought through every setback, the way you believed in work, not luck. Your mother was the love of my life. Leaving you both was the hardest thing I've ever done. Benjamin Ridgemont was a cruel man. When Catherine became pregnant, he vowed to destroy us. He manufactured evidence, embezzlement, fraud, you name it, and he had the power to make it all look real. My choice was simple: disappear and keep you safe, or stay and let him ruin you both to punish me. So I vanished. I made that sacrifice not because I was weak, but because I couldn't bear the thought of you growing up behind bars or under his shadow. I turned exile into purpose. Every share I bought, every deal I made, every late night spent studying numbers instead of living life, it was all for you. You're not just inheriting money, Aaron. You're inheriting 33 years of a father's love that had to find another language. Your ex-wife was wrong about you. You were never too soft for this world. You were too strong for the wrong one. You're not a goldfish. You're my son, and you're about to become one of the most powerful men in Texas. Use that power with care. Keep Veronica as CEO if she'll stay. She's sharp, ethical, and she believed in my vision long before most did. Don't let the money turn you into someone else. You were a good man when you had nothing, when you built something out of thin air, and when life took it all away. That's the man I'm proud to call my son. One last thing. Max didn't run away. I couldn't stand the thought of you losing him too, so I had someone I trust pick him up the night before your custody hearing. He's safe. Check Linda Vance's backyard. She's been keeping him for you. With love, your father, Richard. I sat there for a long time, unable to move, the letter trembling in my hands. Gregory gave me a quiet minute to collect myself before speaking. Your father anticipated this moment might overwhelm you, he said gently, opening the first of the 5 boxes. So let's go one step at a time. Inside were folders thick with documents, stock certificates, signed transfer authorizations, notarized trusts, and property deeds. To keep it simple, Gregory continued, you now legally own 75.3% of Ridgemont Industries through consolidated holdings in your name. Current valuation, $847 million. I swallowed hard. He wasn't done. There's also a personal estate in Vail, valued around $12 million, a collection of classic cars in storage worth about $3 million, and approximately $15 million in liquid assets spread across several accounts. I stared at him, shaking my head. This can't be real. It's very real, Mr. Rawlings, he said, calm and steady. Then his eyes narrowed slightly. And there's one more matter. Your ex-wife's attorney, Ryan Morrison, reached out to us yesterday. Seems news of your father's passing and your inheritance has already reached their circle. He's suggesting a reconciliation might be in everyone's best interest. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed off the mahogany walls. Of course he is, I said. Gregory didn't smile. There's a board meeting on Monday. You'll need to attend as the majority shareholder. Ms. Oakley has been briefed. Your father told her 2 years ago that you'd eventually surface. She's been preparing for this transition quietly ever since. My phone buzzed on the table. Lauren. I ignored it, but she called again. Then came the text. Aaron, we need to talk. I heard about your father. Ryan says we should discuss the children's financial future. Please call me back. I looked at Gregory and slid my phone face down on the table. Mr. Northbridge, I said, I want to file for full custody of my kids. Today, if possible. For the first time since we'd met, the old lawyer smiled. Richard predicted you'd say that, he said. We've already prepared the paperwork. Judge Pike won't be involved. He recused himself yesterday after we filed a judicial review motion regarding your divorce proceedings. Seems there were irregularities in how your assets were valued and divided. My heart kicked. How could you possibly know that? Your father's team gathered everything. Every lunch between Ryan and Judge Pike, every suspicious transaction, every doctored report. He left behind a mountain of evidence. We've just been waiting for you to claim your inheritance so we'd have the standing to act. By Monday morning, the whirlwind hadn't slowed. I stood inside the elevator of Ridgemont Industries wearing my only suit, the same one I'd worn to my divorce hearing, but this time it didn't feel like armor. It felt like history circling back to give me another chance. Linda stood beside me, holding a folder of briefing notes. She caught my reflection in the mirrored wall and smiled softly. Your father would be proud, she said. He wanted this for you more than anything. The elevator doors slid open onto the executive floor. The boardroom stretched before us, chrome, glass, and quiet tension. The table could have seated 30 people easily, and every seat was filled. Veronica Oakley sat at the head, poised, confident, eyes sharp but kind. She rose the moment I entered, crossing the room with a grace that came from years of command. Ladies and gentlemen, she said to the board, her voice steady but warm, I'd like to introduce our new majority shareholder, Mr. Aaron Holloway. I felt a strange twist in my chest. It's Rawlings, I said clearly, meeting every gaze in the room. Aaron Rawlings. I built my name before I knew his. I'll honor both, but I won't erase what I earned on my own. Veronica smiled approvingly. Of course, Mr. Rawlings. We've prepared a full presentation on the company's current operations, unless you'd prefer to address the board first. For a long moment, I didn't speak. I looked around the room, the skyline beyond the windows, the men and women who'd probably dismissed me as some lucky heir, and I thought about every mile I'd driven in that old Honda. Every night I'd gone to bed wondering if my kids would remember me, every cruel word Lauren had thrown my way. Just one thing, I said finally. My father built his stake in this company for 33 years. He could have cashed out, disappeared, lived like royalty anywhere in the world. But he didn't. He stayed. That tells me he believed in what Ridgemont Industries could be. Ms. Oakley, you've been running this company well. I see no reason to change that. I'm not here to fire anyone or reinvent everything. I'm here to protect what he built and make sure this company keeps thriving. A collective exhale passed through the room, tension dissolving like air from a balloon. Veronica's shoulders softened, and for the first time she smiled with real relief. Thank you, Mr. Rawlings, she said. Your father said you'd be pragmatic. He was right. He called me every month for the last 2 years. Always talked about you. She paused, eyes bright. He once told me, any fool can succeed when life gives him everything, but only a real man can fail with grace, keep his dignity, and keep driving forward. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of our new place, watching Mason show Chloe how to throw a proper spiral, copying the exact motion I'd taught him back when life was simpler. Max tore back and forth between them, barking at the ball, full of energy again after those rough months in Linda Vance's backyard. She'd cared for him like he was her own dog, knowing one day she'd hand him back to us. The custody hearing hadn't dragged on like the divorce did. Without Judge Pike shielding her, Lauren's whole case fell apart in about an hour. The new judge, Harriet Chen, went through the paperwork Gregory filed, bank statements, trust ledgers, offshore accounts, and her expression got tighter with every page. It turned out Lauren and Ryan had hidden almost $3 million from the liquidation of Rawlings Transport while claiming in court that I was the one being reckless with money. The forensic accountants found every penny in accounts in the Caymans and Belize. Full custody to Mr. Rawlings, Judge Chen said, her voice cool and final. And Mrs. Rawlings, you should be grateful he isn't pursuing criminal fraud charges. Lauren got to keep the original ranch, but it wasn't the prize it used to be. She'd refinanced it to fund her new lifestyle, and the mortgage payments were eating her alive. Last I heard, she and Ryan were trying to sell, but the market had turned, and people weren't paying $22 million prices for ego houses anymore. Meanwhile, the state was investigating Ryan's advisor license. Turned out he'd been running similar wealth management games on other recently divorced women, promising to grow their settlements while quietly draining their funds. I didn't waste time trying to buy back the old ranch. That chapter was closed. Instead, I bought a smaller spread, 50 acres outside Weatherford, close enough to Dallas that I could be at Ridgemont in under an hour, far enough out that my kids could chase fireflies and ride bikes without hearing sirens. The house was modest, 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, a barn that needed paint, but it had something the mansion never did, peace. My mom, Caroline, came over one Sunday and finally told me the part she'd been carrying alone for 3 decades. She made pot roast like she used to when we were broke, and she was trying to stretch one meal for 3 days. We ate at the table while the kids ran outside with Max. Then she looked at me and said, "There's more you need to know about your father." Her eyes filled before she even started. "Richard called me once, right after you were born," she said. "He was crying so hard I could barely understand him. He said Benjamin Ridgemont had shown him fake documents, bank records, forged statements, witnesses ready to lie. He said if he didn't disappear, Benjamin would have him arrested and then come after us too. He begged me to let him go." I stared at her, feeling both love and a sting of betrayal. "You should have told me, Mom." She shook her head. "How could I? When you were 5 and asking why you didn't have a daddy like the other boys. When you were 15, angry at the world. When you were 25 and finally building your own company. There was never a good time. And I promised him. He said, when the old man is dead and our boy is strong enough, the truth will find him. And it did. Then the puzzle pieces I'd ignored for years slotted into place. "The scholarship money," I said. "The $5,000 a month that showed up for college." Mom nodded. "Every month," she said, "from an estate no one could identify. I knew it was Richard, but I couldn't trace it. That money put you through A&M. Your father never stopped taking care of you, Aaron. He just had to do it quietly. 3 months after I claimed my inheritance, I launched Rawlings Holloway Logistics, 10 brand new electric semis to start. With financing and tech support through Ridgemont's industrial partners, first hires on the list, every driver Lauren and Ryan had tossed aside like trash. When I called Cecil, he broke down right on the phone. "I thought I was done for, Mitch," he said. 68 years old. Who's going to hire me?" "Family doesn't leave family behind," I told him. "You're coming back as head driver trainer. You'll teach the next generation what you taught me." I hired Javier, too, the single dad who used to ride in my Uber to the airport at 5 a.m., always tired, always polite. One day he'd mentioned back in Mexico he'd been an operations manager for a large shipping company, but his credentials didn't transfer here, so he was working 3 low-wage jobs. I remembered that. Now he runs our Dallas terminal like a pro. Schedule's tight, trucks on time, drivers happy. Give a good man a real chance and he'll build you a kingdom. I stayed involved with Ridgemont, attending board meetings, signing off on major acquisitions, but I didn't micromanage. That was never the goal. Veronica and I became unlikely allies, friends even. She told me once she'd been terrified I'd walk in, pull a classic new owner move, and fire the entire C-suite to bring in my own people. But I'd meant every word I'd said that first day. My father trusted her. That was enough for me. One afternoon during a break in a board meeting, she stood next to me at the window, looking out over Dallas. "Your father would love this," she said quietly. "He always said the real measure of a man wasn't what he collected, but what he built for others. You're doing exactly what he hoped you would." I looked out at the city, at the skyline my father had secretly owned, at the roads I used to drive as an invisible Uber driver, at the life I'd somehow circled back to, and I finally believed her. Once a month, I still climb into that Tesla before the sun's all the way up, flip the app on, and go right back to being just your driver for 4 hours, like I never stopped doing airport runs just to keep the lights on. I could be home sipping good coffee, or at a board meeting in a glass tower, but I choose to drive because it keeps me close to the version of me that fought like heck to survive. And every dollar from those rides still goes straight into the fund I started, the Aaron Rawlings Foundation, for dads who got steamrolled in court the way I did. We've helped 43 men so far, and I don't mean with nice words or thoughts and prayers. I mean we paid retainers for real attorneys, hired forensic accountants, filed motions to reopen custody cases, got visitation restored. These were good fathers who got labeled unstable because they didn't have the right suit or the right last name or the right buddy at the country club. Guys who were late on child support not because they didn't care, but because their ex sold the house out from under them and took their business. Guys who got branded as angry because they cried in court when they realized the judge had made up his mind before they even sat down. Some of them send me photos now. Little girls in ballet shoes, boys in baseball uniforms, kids blowing out birthday candles with dad standing proudly next to them, and I save every single one like treasure. Because that's why I still pick up strangers even though, on paper, I don't have to anymore. Last week I rolled up to Love Field, same exact pickup spot where I met Veronica the night my whole life spun around. Only this time it wasn't a CEO in a cream-colored suit. It was a kid barely out of college, looking like he'd ironed his shirt in the dark. Suit was too big, tie was a little crooked, briefcase corners scuffed from being used longer than it should have been. He slid into the back seat already on the phone, trying to reschedule one interview so he could make another because his car was in the shop and he couldn't afford to Uber all week. I could hear that tone in his voice, the one people get when life keeps telling them, not yet, but they keep showing up anyway. When he finally hung up, I caught his eye in the mirror. "Rough day?" I said. He gave me that tired smile I know too well. "Rough year," he said. "But I'm building something. My dad always said the only way out is through." That right there, that sentence, that's the kind of thing that tells me who a man is. We got to his drop-off, just some boring office park in Irving, the kind of place where dreams go to wait in the lobby, and I handed him my real card, not the rideshare one, the one with my name in raised letters. "Call my office Monday," I told him. "We're always looking for hungry people who get that success isn't about where you start, but how you walk the road you're on." He looked down, read the name, and his eyes jumped wide. You're that Aaron Rawlings, the guy who owns Ridgemont Industries." I laughed. "I own most of it," I said. "But that's not why I drive. I drive because every passenger has a story, and sometimes a forgotten purse in the back seat can flip a man's whole life. You never know when the universe is lining up one tiny moment that's about to pull the curtain back. That's the part folks don't get. They think rock bottom is punishment, but sometimes rock bottom is just where you finally sit still, long enough for fate to catch up with you. About a month ago, Lauren sent me one last text. "I underestimated you. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, I was wrong." Just that one little sentence. And you know what? That was enough for me. Not because I needed her approval. I passed that mile marker a long time ago. But because it proved what I already knew. She hadn't seen the whole of me. She'd only seen the version of me who loved her, trusted her, handed her the reins. She'd never met the version of me who could rebuild from nothing because he finally knew where he came from. I didn't answer her. Not because I was bitter, but because I was busy doing real life. I was under the hood with Mason showing him how to change the oil on one of our trucks, telling him which tools to grab and why you listen to the sound of an engine even more than you read gauges. Chloe was next to us on a little stool in the garage painting a picture of Max with big cartoon ears. My mom was in the kitchen with Javier's girls, baking cookies and talking about how I used to doodle semi-trucks in the margins of my school papers. The house was full of noise, kid giggles, dog barks, oven door slamming, country music low on the radio, and I remember thinking, This right here is wealth, not the number on an account, not the square footage, not the board seat, a house full of people who love each other and know the truth. That's when it really dropped into place for me. Lauren had said I'd never recover from losing everything, but she didn't understand. Recovering the stuff was never the assignment. The assignment was discovering the story behind the story. The assignment was finding out that my dad didn't abandon me, he shielded me. That he didn't forget me, he invested in me. That he didn't choose money over family, he chose to build money in secret for his family. He didn't rescue me with wealth, he rescued me with evidence. Evidence that I was seen, evidence that I was worth a 33-year plan. Evidence that somebody loved me enough to watch me grow up from across the street just so I could thrive without being hunted. You can't buy that. You can't win that in court. That's the kind of inheritance that stays when markets crash. Most mornings now, on my way into Dallas, I swing past the cemetery. It's not out of the way. I chose the route on purpose. His headstone's simple, like the man. Gray granite, clean lettering. Richard Holloway, father, investor, patient man. That last line still knocks the wind out of me. Patient man. A man who could have blown everything up in 1987, but instead waited over 3 decades for the timing to be right. I took Mason and Chloe there last week. We stopped for flowers, but the kids wanted to bring drawings instead. They each made a picture of our house. Me out front, them, Grandma Caroline, Javier's girls, and Max with his tongue out. Chloe even added 2 big trucks with the Rawlings Holloway logo on the side. "Was Grandpa a good man?" she asked, looking up at me with those blue eyes that match his. I thought about what I'd learned, how good men sometimes get forced into bad choices, how love sometimes has to hide, how doing the right thing doesn't always look right in the moment. "He was a patient man," I told her, "and sometimes that's the best kind of good, doing the right thing when nobody's clapping." She accepted that like it was the easiest truth in the world. Kids don't need things to be perfect, they just need them to be honest. Business is good now. Rawlings Holloway Logistics is sitting at 40 trucks right now, and if the supply chain doesn't throw a tantrum and the drivers keep coming in like they have been, we'll hit 100 before long. We're running clean energy loads, partnering only with companies that don't cut corners, and paying our drivers what I always wished I could pay them back when I was scraping by. But somewhere along the way, I stopped counting success by how many rigs had my name on the side. Success for me now is Saturday morning pancakes with Mason and Chloe arguing over who gets the one with the most chocolate chips. Success is Max practically breaking the door off its hinges when the school bus pulls up because he can't wait to see the kids. Success is hearing my mom laugh in my kitchen again after years of holding in secrets that weren't even hers to carry. Success is being able to write a check to a dad I've never met so he can fight for his kids and not even feeling it in the bank account. Some nights I step out on the porch and look out over our 50 acres, watching the sun go down over grass that actually belongs to us. It's not 500 acres like the Malibu in Texas spread Lauren wanted. There's no spring-fed lake, no 7-bedroom house built to impress people we barely knew, no pressure to look the part for anybody. It's smaller, yeah, way smaller, but it's quiet, it's paid for, and every board in that house sits on a foundation of truth. 2 names cover everything I build now, Rawlings and Holloway, twisted together the way they should have been from the start. Sometimes I head out to the barn just to run my hand along the side of one of our trucks, tracing the logo we designed. My name is there for the man I had to become on my own, the guy who slept in cabs and hustled loads and refused to quit. His name is there for the man who believed in me from a distance, the one who worked in silence for 3 decades so I could stand right where I'm standing. I think a lot about the dads I talk to on the phone now. Guys who sit in their cars outside courthouses staring at papers that tell them they're only allowed to be a father every other weekend. Guys who just lost their house, their business, their dog, their pride, like I did. They think that's the end of the story. I tell them every time, you're not at the ending, you're at the plot twist. Keep driving. Because that's exactly what happened to me. An ordinary day, an ordinary ride, a forgotten purse in the back seat, a woman who recognized the face of a man who'd loved me in secret, and suddenly everything I thought I knew about myself folded open. That's why I'll keep driving at least once a month, no matter how big the company gets. Because somewhere out there, a man is riding in the back of somebody's car thinking he's just a case number, just an ex-husband, just a problem to be managed, when really he might be one ride away from finding out he's the center of a plan somebody made for him years ago. And the funny thing is, the bigger the company gets, the more I realize the real blessing wasn't the $847 million. It was the patience. It was the proof. It was seeing in black and white that I was worth waiting for. The business side of things is good. Veronica still runs Ridgemont like a pro. I show up to the board meetings. We make ethical plays. We don't gut companies just because we can. At the logistics yard, I stop by unannounced, talk to the drivers, ask about their kids, make sure the coffee's fresh and the paychecks are right. Cecil tells stories to the younger guys about the time I bought my first truck and how I used to sleep in it like it was a hotel room. Javier runs the terminal like a maestro. Clipboard straight, routes tight, everybody respected. And I look around that yard and realize I built the place I always wanted to work. Not a place where guys are disposable, but a place where we actually mean something. And at home, the wins look even better. Chloe showing me a school art project of our ranch with 2 last names on the mailbox, Mason telling his teacher his dad, helps people get their kids back. My mom cooking without that faraway look in her eyes. That's what rebuilding looks like. That's what inheritance is supposed to do. Free you to be better, not just richer. So if you're hearing this and you're in that hard season, your ex is winning every motion, your lawyer looks tired, your bank account is gasping, the judge doesn't seem to care, listen to me. That's not the last chapter. Sometimes losing everything is how you get set up to see what was always yours. My name is Aaron Rawlings, son of Richard Holloway, and I'm telling you right now, rock bottom didn't break me. It finally gave me solid ground to build on. If any part of this sounded like your life, hit like, share it with somebody who's in their courtroom battle, and stick around for more real stories, because life really is stranger and kinder than we think. And always, always keep driving forward. You have no idea which ride, which meeting, which forgotten purse is going to open the door to the life you were meant to live.